Hi, everyone. This is John Daly again. I'm here with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
So far, so good, John.
Great. First, I want to wish you a happy New Year. I think this is the first time we've spoken since the New Year. So, did you have a good holiday season?
Anytime there's no negatives, it's a good holiday season. So everything went smoothly, meaning no great excitement, and even more important, no great negatives. No negatives at all, actually.
Great, great. So, we're going to start today's episode with a topic you wrote about on Monday, whether or not Joe Biden is going to run for re-election. Now, you were once quite certain that he was not going to run, but lately he's been making some moves suggesting that maybe he will run. Bernie, what's your current view on this topic? Do you think he'll run, and do you think he should run?
I'm feeling real uneasy, John. Feeling very uneasy. I promised I wouldn't make any predictions after my infamous 2016 prediction about Donald Trump, how he wouldn't run. I said, that's it. I've learned my lesson. And then I said to our subscribers, our friends out there, take this to the bank. Joe Biden is not going to run. And now I'm not so sure. He says he intends to run. We know that. His wife says she's all on board. His team, his White House team, is putting out stories about what a great job he's doing. He said he wants to change the primary lineup, getting rid of Iowa, which is overwhelmingly white and very rural, and substitute that for South Carolina, the state that put him over the top. Every indication, John, every indication is that he's going to run. I just have trouble believing that. I mean, here's a man who has said he's referred to his vice president as President Harris, and he's done it a lot. I mean, he's not with it, and I'm not saying that to be snooty or malicious at all. He's just not, he doesn't have the mental acuity to be president of the United States. And I'm thinking even he must know that. Even Joe Biden must know that and will ultimately say, I'm not going to run. I'm going to stick with that, but I'm not confident at all about it any longer.
Well, no, I'm with you on that. I don't think he's going to run. If he does run, I think it would be just a really bad idea. From a Democratic perspective, I think the only coherent case there is that he's beaten Trump before and he can do it again. That's probably true, but at the same time, I think might Trump might be the only Republican that Biden can beat. And if Trump doesn't win the Republican nomination, then what? I don't think that's a smart idea from the Democrats. But from a Republican perspective, they might want Biden to run again. I think because he's been an unpopular president. He continues to degrade as you described before everyone's eyes. And if Republicans end up nominating someone, a competent candidate, I think Biden would have a really, really hard time.
I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I could think off the top of my head of 10 people, if they nominated, Biden would have a very difficult time winning re-election. But I could think of one person who, if the Republicans nominated, Biden could win. One person.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's 100% chance that he could beat Trump. You never know. What could happen when with me, and I feel like I don't know if this is an old school position that my strong preference is always for both parties to put forth quality candidates and give general election voters a real choice. But unfortunately, the parties have been so weak in recent years that we've been getting people like Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and so the voters are always kind of feeling like they're voting against someone instead of for someone. I think if one of the parties can kind of figure out, how to put forth, how to nominate someone who people can actually be for instead of against, man, that would be such a much better situation for this country.
In 2016, Donald Trump won mainly, but there are many reasons. By the way, there are many reasons liberals aren't interested in looking into to their detriment. They should know why Donald Trump won and the discontent that produced a Donald Trump. But he won because people didn't like Hillary Clinton. And in 2020, he lost because people didn't like Donald Trump. You're right. They're always voting against somebody. I'd like to vote for somebody that I like for a change. That hasn't happened in a while.
No, I haven't. I think I was the last general election candidate that I voted for and actually won. It was Bush back in 2004. So it's been a long dry spell. I haven't voted for a major party candidate in the last couple election cycles now. So yeah, I really would love, and I'm not as picky as people might want to think. I mean, I would vote for just about any Republican, save a few. Not, I shouldn't say any Republican of the ones we've heard about running. I would vote for a number of those without a whole lot of problem, even if I don't like them that much. But yeah, I would really love the Republicans to nominate someone I can get behind. I miss being able to vote for a Republican presidential
Well,
nominee.
before we move on, let me end with the segment with this. We're a country of 330 million people. Okay, some of them are 5 years old, so they wouldn't qualify to run for president. But in a country of over 300 million people, Biden versus Bush 2.0 is the best we can come up with?
Or Trump, you mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. Biden versus Donald Trump is 2.0 is the best we can come up with? Really? Really?
Yeah.
In the whole country
It's
of smart people? Nobody voted for Joe Biden because they thought he was smart. Nobody voted for Joe Biden because they thought had great ideas. Nobody voted for Joe Biden because they thought he was a visionary who could do something really good and necessary for the country. They voted for him because they thought he'd bring a sense of normalcy back to the White House. That's the best we could do. Anyway,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
move on.
no. Sure. So let's go back to the excuse me. Let's go back to the Republican side. So far, the only declared candidate is Donald Trump, and he doesn't seem to have a whole lot of momentum behind his candidacy, at least not yet. Almost all of the other, almost all of his candidates that he endorsed, at least for the big, contests, lost in the midterms. He's at the center of multiple investigations. And it feels to me like he's just kind of, barking from the sidelines right now, and including about digital trading cards, which is just kind of interesting. Bernie, is this sort of how it seems to you as well?
Yes, but, and the but is very important. If Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump has lost a lot of the magic or whatever you want to call it that he once had. He's not new anymore. And people know what they're getting if they vote for him this time around. So if he runs against one Republican, and I don't mean any particular one, I could come up with a few names: Ron DeSantis, Glenn Youngkin. Don't underestimate Glenn Youngkin, and a number of others. He'd have a very tough time. So in that sense, I think you're right that he doesn't have the whatever you want to call it that he once had. But if he's running against 10 candidates, I think we could see 2016 all over again. They'll split their vote, and the 20 to 30% of Trump diehard fans will stick with Trump no matter what. And I want to emphasize, when I say no matter what, I'm not being dramatic. I mean, no matter what. And he'll win the nomination again. So he may not have the clout that he once had. He may look sillier than he ever looked with these trading cards and all that. He may not have the buzz that he wants. You're right about all of that. But it may not matter if he's running against too many candidates in the primaries and they don't drop out quickly enough to make it a two-person race. A two-person race, I think your analysis would be spot on. A 10-person race, I see bad things for the Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think right now, although he is the only person who's officially declared, the one Republican that a lot of people are talking about right now is someone you mentioned, Ron DeSantis. He continues to establish himself as a sort of a governing culture warrior, while right now, Trump isn't governing; he's just saying things from the sidelines. But not just as DeSantis is not just establishing himself as having a certain MAGA cred and a certain governing cred, but as someone who could actually win. And I think it's tough to get too excited about people this early. I remember when everybody thought, Rudy Giuliani was going to be the Republican nominee right out of the gates. A lot of people got excited about Perry, at first, and they just kind of fizzled. So we don't know, but right now it looks like he is probably the strongest threat to Donald Trump in this nomination.
Yeah, I would alert everybody to what you just said. We don't know at this point. People we thought were the front runners faded quickly in the past. And anybody first of all, we don't know if DeSantis is going to run. DeSantis may say, look, I'm a young man. I've got time. Why go now? And we just don't know. We don't know who the front runner is going to be. It's all a big guessing game. And when you get into guessing games, you wind up with egg on your face, as the pundits have shown us with their predictions about a red wave, to use one example.
Right, and that's actually I was going to segue into the midterms a little bit, but I will something you brought up kind of caught my ear too, about the possible thought process of a Ron DeSantis, saying that he's young, he's got plenty of time to do this. I think that perspective though has probably come back to haunt. I know it definitely came back to haunt Chris Christie when he was the Republicans' new big thing, and he decided not to run that year. And I don't think that was sort of his moment, I think, and he never grabbed it by the reins. And my sense is that, because of that, DeSantis, I think he's smart enough to probably recognize that, he's really sort of a hot commodity right now. If he lets it slip by for another 4 years, he may not be. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, that historically, you're absolutely right. But if DeSantis goes up in the primaries up against somebody like Glenn Youngkin or Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo, all of a sudden the luster of DeSantis may fade. He may not seem the great knight in shining armor that he appears to be now. We, my only point is we don't know. We do not know what things will look like a year from now, let alone almost 2 years from now. We don't know.
That's true. That's true. So, some of the biggest losers, we had talked about this a little off air. Some of the biggest losers of 2022 seem to be the national media. Most recently, journalists and pundits misread the midterms pretty badly. There was no red wave. I think abortion was a bigger issue than a lot of people thought it was going to be. So were concerns over Stop the Steal candidates. People didn't realize how serious I think voters were about not letting such individuals in the public office. There seems to be this, widening disconnect between the media, and especially on cable news, and the general public. I'm sort of surprised sometimes how completely different the cable news product is, in their analysis of stories than where those stories actually end up going. Am I wrong about that, Bernie?
Yeah, the pundits, and I'm including myself in this, in the sense of I also predicted a red wave. We're dead wrong. Now, I was one of the very, very few, and I'll pat myself on the back for this. I was one of the, while I'm admitting I got it wrong on the red wave, and I thought that crime and inflation and the border would be the dominant issues. I did say, you guys are missing the abortion vote. You guys are missing this. This is going to be bigger than you think. So I was right about that, and I think that was a big deal. I think that was a big deal. I heard one little vignette, which is appropriate of maybe nothing, but one little vignette. I heard a Fox commentator, not a Fox person, but a contributor. He said there's going to be a bloodbath in the midterms. And he said this like a day before the election. Democrats are going to suffer a bloodbath, his word, bloodbath. He was on the next day and never acknowledged that he got anything wrong. Now, come on. I mean, I'm here saying I got it wrong. I got it wrong in 2016 when I said Trump wouldn't run. And if he did, he certainly wouldn't win. I got it wrong. I learned my lesson until the Biden thing, anyway. And that's it. You can go on television and say things that turn out to be just plain ridiculously wrong. Bloodbath. not a red wave, a bloodbath, and not acknowledge, well, geez, I'm sorry, I was on just 24 hours ago and I got it wrong. You know, so in terms of credibility, the media lost a lot of it, as you say, John, but I don't know that it matters. You think people are not tuning into the same media because they got it wrong? No. And let me say one thing that's a little off base, but it's almost like if I were teaching a journalism class, I would talk about this. Something I've wanted to talk about for a while about the media. The very nature of news is negative. We don't report about the bank that didn't get held up. We don't report about the plane that landed safely. So after a while, you get a warped view of reality. You get a view that terrible things are constantly happening. Now, granted, people are smart enough to know the nature of news is negative, and they're not going into fits of depression thinking that the world is coming to an end because they've heard a series of bad news stories on television. But then you add something relatively new, 20, 30 years new, and that's cable TV. So now you're getting it 24 hours a day. You're getting it day and night, negative news. This affects how people think about the country in which they live. You know, things are horrible. Things are horrible. The border's horrible, inflation's horrible, crime is horrible. And these are all legitimate issues, but that's all we're getting. Then you add one more thing, John, and that's commentary. Commentary is much more powerful than the mere recitation of facts. People giving opinions. That's why they're in prime time. That's where the money is in prime time, because opinions are provocative. They get you to tune in. Nobody's giving middle of the road opinions. Nobody's saying, you know, on the one hand, I could see that, you know, I think it's a moderate position I'm going to take tonight on CNN or Fox or MSNBC. So what you have is a constant barrage of negative news, not only on the network news at 6:30 or whatever time you get the news, but now all day long because of cable. And now you have commentary that's extreme because that's where the money is. And you get this view of America that is not a real view of America. And that's why people, good people, decent people, intelligent people say, if Biden gets reelected, it's going to be the end of it's, and they mean this, it's going to be the end of America as we know it. He's going to destroy their word, America. If Trump gets elected, he will destroy America. Now, you know, we went through a Great Depression, 2 world wars, 9/11. Nobody's going to destroy America. The American people won't let them destroy America. But the media has had, partially because of the very nature of the media, partially because of what it's become, a very harmful effect on our psyche and how we see the country that we live in. Sorry for the lecture, but I've wanted to talk about that for some time.
No, I think that's true, it's something, and this isn't as important, but I think about this quite a bit too. We have a number of readers who don't live in America. You know, some live in Canada, some live south of us. We hear from them, and it's always sort of interesting because they, you know, they're basically their entire perspective of American politics and American culture is almost entirely from cable news. And when I point this out, you know, I think thinking you're getting a good representation of our country from you know cable news is like thinking I get a good representation of Japan's culture from watching their game shows, which are just completely crazy. And you
That's
know
a very
that's obviously part of it,
that's a
but yeah,
that's a very
it's
good
very
point.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely you know but you know, it's not obviously it's not just an issue for outsiders looking in. It's a lot of people in different parts of the country. They live in a very red state, a very blue state. They see these other things. They think it's representative of a good chunk of the country, and yeah, it gives them a really bad perception. And you know,
What
one thing I was
troubles
going to talk. Go ahead.
what troubles me, John, is it gives people this bad perception, which they think is reality. You know, reality is when you go to a store and somebody says, "Hey, how you doing today?" And they mean it. You know, in some cities that never happens, I'll grant you that. But I live in places, I've been in places, let's put it that way, where people are extremely kind and generous and nice. Well, that doesn't cut it in the media. So you do wind up with this impression that is not a real impression. And it affects how you think, not only about your country, but how you think about the people leading your country. Look, I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden if he ran against Donald Duck. That would be easy. I'd vote for Donald Duck, okay? Or Mickey Mouse or Scooby Doo. I'd vote for Scooby Doo in a second over. But I don't think Joe Biden is going to destroy America. Now, right now, some people watching us, and I'm not just saying this, we have a smarter audience than most websites. I mean, I read what people write. They're pretty smart people. But some of them are right now saying, oh, Bernie, you're being naive. He will destroy America. He wouldn't, he won't. He won't. He has bad ideas. He's not a smart man. He's not an honest man. He's not a
No.
guy with ideas that will make America a better place. He's a politician in the worst sense. He'll do what he has to do to get the support of his own base, his own party, and when he's running for election for the greater electorate. Yeah, I don't like him. I don't even think he's a nice guy, actually, but I don't think he's going to destroy America.
No, a lot of it's. I think people sort of their thought that the president of the United States has the power to, and there's a lot of power that obviously comes with the presidency. But it comes down to it. There is a division of powers. We have the different branches of the government. It's not like I don't think any one person. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not possible, but you know, people tend to think that the president has the switch where he can fix things, change the direction of the country dramatically. And I get why people think that. I probably believe that more a few years ago than I do now. But yeah, it's people kind of get fixated on that one thing and they don't realize that it's there's a lot of governing powers. There's a lot of people that are making these decisions, and a lot of stuff that goes on in Washington really doesn't have an effect on everyday American culture. So yeah, it's
That's a very important point. That's a very important point. A lot of what goes on doesn't have an effect on regular people. Let me give you one example. Big news on any of the political websites is Kevin McCarthy, who will know the answer, you know, very soon, obviously, or we will know the answer by the time you see this. Will Kevin McCarthy win the speakership in the first go around? You know who doesn't care about that besides me? About 300 million Americans.
right.
I speak to people. That's how I get ideas for what I write. I speak to regular people. I want to know what they're interested in. Nobody cares about that. That's a Washington thing. They care. Do they care about crime? Yes. Do they care about the border? Yes. Do they care about inflation and the economy? Yes. But this business of who why do I care if Kevin McCarthy? I mean, I know technically why I should care. Matters if a hard right conservative is a speaker because of what they'll investigate and all that. I get that. But I don't wake up in the morning thinking about Kevin McCarthy, and I don't go to sleep thinking about who's going to be the GOP speaker. I just don't. I don't care. And I'm not alone. And that gets to your point, John. There's a disconnect between what people in Washington think and the confirmation bias of journalists who set the agenda, who are based in Washington, what they think, and what regular folks in the United States of America between the East Coast and the West Coast, what they think. Big difference.
Well, that's probably a, good place to wrap things up. I want to, as usual, thank everybody for tuning in. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Bernie, do you have anything else you'd like to say to members?
Tell your friends, the more the merrier.
Absolutely. And we did get a number of gift signups, gifted memberships that's still available out there. So, like Bernie says, let your friends know if you like what's going on here so they can be part of it. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Bernie, thanks for doing this. You have a great day. All right.
Have a great new year. You, John, and all my friends listening to us. Happy New Year.